Good afternoon, and welcome to the Thursday, May 9th meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. I'm Cynette Cavaliere, the chair, and as my tradition, I would like us to go around our room and say who is here, starting with Daniel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Moore. I'm a member.
I'm Katie Rygg. I'm a committee member.
Pat Schichler, committee member.
Sarah Waterman, engineering department staff.
Matt Prinzing, planning department staff.
Just move it down so you don't have to. Yeah. Adjusting the mics here. Okay. Thank you very much. Glad everybody's here today. We have condolences sent out to Roy, who is unable to join us today, and Kevin will be joining us a little bit late. Okay, so we're going to start with the review and the approval of the minutes of the April 11th meeting. Does anybody have any corrections or adjustments to those minutes as they were sent out? Okay, given that, can I have a motion for their approval?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving them as they are written?
Aye.
Okay. For those of you who are watching us on TV, we have a slightly different seating arrangement, so it's kind of changing the way that we're looking at each other here. So if you see us kind of glance different directions, that's what's happening. The next thing is a standing report on the Monroe County Environmental Management Council. I have submitted a report from the April 17th meeting of that organization. I was actually not able to attend, so this is taken from the minutes of that meeting. So the highlight of that meeting was that they had a guest presentation on the High Acres Nature Center. And the significant component of that was that they talked about the importance of wetlands and that they have actually done a wetlands restoration project there to take some of the areas and convert it back into wetlands. And so they talked about the challenge of that. And I actually couldn't really tell from the notes whether or not they felt it was successful, but I have a feeling that they believe it's significant enough of something with an impact to go ahead and continue that effort. The next meeting of that committee is May 15th, and the presenter will be from the Cornell Cooperative Extension, and we'll be talking about local tree health and invasive species that impact tree health, so I'm pretty excited about that presentation.
And
And if any of you do want to attend that meeting and are able to, please let me know, and we are certainly welcome to have other people attend just in that unofficial form, but it's quite an interesting meeting.
What time is that and where?
Starts at, I'm going to have to guess here, 4 p.m. Let me see if I have my notes here on that one. Yeah, I believe it's at 4 p.m. and it's over on the east side. No, we're on the east side, the west side of town near the airport. It's off of, very close to Eco Park.
is it at the Fleet Center?
It's at the Fleet Center, yes, exactly. Thank you.
If I'm able to go, I'll get in touch with you for
Okay.
address and make sure that's the time.
Yes.
The date was on the bottom, right?
Yes. May 15th.
And the next meeting is May 15th.
Yes, May 15th. Okay, any other questions on those minutes, those notes from that meeting? Pat, I'm going to actually say something. Pat commented on reviewing the April meeting, as I had the note at the bottom that there is the open time at some of the meetings, and if we have anything we want to share about Penfield, I do welcome comments on that particular meeting. I had not had the opportunity to do that, but sometimes we run up to about 5 minutes past the end time of the meeting and people get really squirrely. Okay, so then moving on, we'll get into the review of our required items. The first one is town development projects.
At this time, we do not have any for the committee to review. I will give a reminder that there is construction at Shadow Pines right now for the new facilities that are going in there. So if you're driving by, don't be surprised. But yeah, that's just one of the current town projects going on. Oh, and also, it's kind of a side note project. So everyone's aware, the DPW will be doing oil and stone in the next couple months on different roads around town. And if you want to know if that's your road, you can go to the town website. Or social media. I think it's on social media too.
Okay, so they actually publish,
What roads? I don't think they publish like what week each road is going to be, but what the list of roads are.
oh, okay.
And then preparing mailings, right, to,
Yeah, the town just did ours not so long ago, and we got a letter saying that was coming, so.
Okay, requests from the town board.
There are no requests at this time.
Okay. Clean energy community actions.
Just a small update, we're continuing to work on the grant applications. They're due the beginning and end of June.
Remind us again, just so you submit something that says you've done something and then they invite you to apply for a grant? Is that how?
It's two different ways. So there's action grants, which are you complete one of the specific actions. One of the ones that we are pursuing currently with the help of Color Penfield Green is community campaigns. We're pursuing the one for electric vehicles and the one for clean heating and cooling. Both of those are individual actions that both get individual action grants afterwards if we complete the specific number required for those actions. So that's the action grant side of things. The two grants that we currently have applications for are the designation grants. So that is once we complete enough actions to get a certain number of points, in this case I think it was 1,000 and 3,000 points, then we can apply for those specific designation grants. And respectively, the 1-star designation grant is for $10,000 and the 3-star designation grant is for, maybe it's the 2-star. The other designation grant is for $50,000.
Thanks for that.
Yep.
Okay, so we can move into our old business, and the first one is our public tree law update. For any of you that have been following it, we have revised the name of it from the town tree law to the public tree law, just for clarity. And Matt, you have an update on that for us, or?
I do if you don't.
yeah, Sarah, if you want
Oh,
to.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
After the town board meeting from last night, it was shared with me that there are members of the town board that are looking to move this tree law forward prior to the completion of a forestry plan. So they're looking for us to make the changes that we previously discussed, specifically with one of the definitions, and then there's a couple questions that they had, and then we would look to take it back to the town board, and ideally from there, they would look to set up, to approve it. And then we would continue and hopefully look at grant applications for a forestry plan at that point, once they approve a local tree law, public tree law, sorry.
It's going to take a while. I think that pursuing that prior to an actual forestry plan development is what we have presumed all along.
That was the hope. There was some other direction that we were given, and we've shared with this committee that they were hesitant to pursue after the last group of changes that we had made. They're hoping to approve it sooner than later, but they need to see those final changes.
Okay, what do we need to do to get those changes on paper?
I believe.
Yeah, so I'll be making the updates to the definitions, but ultimately it wasn't really anything that would ultimately require, a redrafting or anything that would, it was all things that seemed in line with what the committee had discussed before, just getting the feedback from the town board and needing to add some clarifying words to some of the definitions and things like that.
So does this need to come back to us in committee, or you can just share the changes?
Yeah, I
and
would,
then return to the town board?
Exactly. So
Okay.
I would make the changes, and then I can share it with EECC as like, this is our final draft, but more as just a notice. I wouldn't bring it back for further discussion. It doesn't
Okay.
seem like anything that would really prompt, further debate or need further advice from the committee. So
It was more clarification
Right.
along what land is maintained by the town and
Right.
those types of things.
yeah,
So it's all things that we've discussed and
Yep.
put our stamp on as it is.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's encouraging.
right.
Yes.
Right.
It's very encouraging. Okay, anything else on the public tree law?
Not at this
Not
time.
at this time.
Then let's go ahead and go into the Arbor Day celebration wrap-up.
So following up our Arbor Day celebration, we gave out 196 shrubs, and we had 4 left over. Those 4 were given to the Trails Committee and planted at Sherwood Fields. So they were added to one of our parks, thankfully, and we're thankful to the Trails Committee for doing that work. It seemed like a great event all around. I know it's specifically an Arbor Day celebration and EV car show, but it was very much also a sustainability education collaborative. There were a lot of different groups there that were sharing information and educating residents and giving out seeds and all kinds of wonderful things. All of the residents that I spoke to, I think I can say that Matt spoke to, were really excited and encouraged at the event, and I think all around it went really well. And we're thankful to the committee members that could make it. We understand those that couldn't. It was really good.
Yeah, everybody seemed really happy that came up and got their bushes, and a lot of people taking advantage of taking a picture of the QR code. And we did have some paper instructions for planting that,
I guess I didn't specify that. So in previous years, we would bring enough copies of planting instructions and information about each of the plants in paper for each shrub that we gave away, or each tree that we gave away in the past. This year, we chose to have QR codes and have a little less paper usage, and residents seemed to, overall, they appreciated that. They could use the QR code, and some just took pictures rather than taking a paper. So we at least had some conservation of resources.
Slightly greener event. Huh?
Yeah.
be a model for the community. Could I add a note? It's unrelated to conservation or the handing out of shrubs, but next year, we did this last year, we gave out granola bars, and we noticed a lot of groups, just so that it's in the minutes, so in case we refer back next year to what we might have done, or at least discuss it
Sure.
next year.
It was a snack or something?
A snack. I missed my
Okay.
breakfast.
Oh,
I was forced to eat chocolate from one of the other groups.
oh my goodness, the hardship that you got put upon.
No.
Yeah. And Katie, I think you had something.
Yeah, I did. For those residents who were able to take home shrubs and maybe they lost their sheet or they lost their picture of the QR code, is there anything online that they can access to
Yeah, so
learn what they got and how to take care of it?
The QR code takes you to a page on the town's website.
Okay.
So, specifically, it takes you to the Arbor Day page, which then has, you scroll and you can see the bayberry and the red osier dogwood, and it's a hyperlink that takes you to that PDF of the planting tips.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is there any way you'd like to show us? I
Yeah, I can do that.
I know we love your computer bedazzling skills over there.
Just a report, I took one of each, and my red osier dogwood looks like it's doing very well. The other one, not so much, but maybe it'll revive.
Yeah, so this is the Arbor Day page under the events and performances. And this will be, year after year, because as, if we, at this rate, hopefully if the tree law gets adopted, then we will get that Tree City USA status, but we'll have to continue having Arbor Day events to maintain that status. And so this page will house our Arbor Day event information from year on and year on. But yeah, so this is where you see those northern bayberry and the red osier dogwood. And so if you click on the link, then you get the planting tips and seedling planting tips. Yeah.
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
My takeaway, or one improvement I felt after the event, was that while we featured native plants of the two that we were giving away, we didn't have really any materials that explained, not that we got any questions about what a native plant is from the people that attended, the residents. But ultimately, I think that if we had something there that, tells, or explains what native plants are, why we're promoting them, I think that goes a long way. And
Yeah, it's an opportunity to take advantage for education
Right.
every chance we get. That's really good idea.
yeah, and just seeing how popular it was and how people were flocking over to us, I think it's a great opportunity to engage and educate the community. So, yeah.
And people coming with their children.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of children, I understand that Roy's daughter was quite a
She was,
active
yeah.
tree helper that day? Or?
Yeah.
She was a huge help. I would say she gave away a whole lot of the trees, but also she was
Shrubs.
helping, the shrubs.
Yeah.
She was also helping to educate residents in how to prepare them once they were ready to plant them in the ground. I think that was a huge help as well.
Yeah. And also, I know that it's been asked a couple times. I don't know, we've always had the information at hand, but the two trees that were planted at the community center, one was the October morning glory, and the other one was the northern red oak.
Could you repeat the second one?
The northern red oak. And on the day of, it was very obvious which one was the northern red oak. It has pretty bright red limbs at this point, so, yeah. But it's
Heard that
right as you pull in on your left and right into the community center, so,
Prior to the circle.
right.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, then the next thing on our list is our Climate Smart Communities Review. And unfortunately, as a group, we're at a bit of a disadvantage because we were really hoping to use Roy's business sense here to guide us in this process. But one of the things that we were thinking, at least to get us started, is to really start to capture, one strategy was which things are still out there that truly are low-hanging fruit or moderately low-hanging fruit that we could focus on, and if there's any of these items in particular that in the review any of us have felt a passion for. So I know, Daniel, you actually have something that's not a low-hanging fruit that you would really love to see us go forward on. So I don't know if you want to kind of talk about that, if you don't mind doing that.
Yeah, so there's two in particular that I find that are necessary for both now and the future, and it's both the Government Operations Climate Action Plan and the Community Climate Action Plan. As we were kind of discussing before the meeting started, that there is the County Climate Action Plan, so in my opinion, we wouldn't have to start completely over, and that if the town was to pursue both of these, unlike the county, the town, it would be more binding, because in the county it's more of a suggestion. And so, because we all know that the climate is worsening, and even as we're in a good spot in Penfield, we still have to take action. So those two in particular, I know that we are a leader in this community of climate and also environmental issues, but we can show what we've done and what we still have to complete.
I think that's completely appropriate, and I can tell you that that is actually already on some priorities and goals for some internal departments for the town. So that is, I don't, at this point, have a date for us to start that process, but I know that that's something the town's looking to pursue. My current understanding is that there was some hope once the county is done with the second phase of their climate action plan, that may be the ideal timeframe to get going on ours.
And I know, Katie, you mentioned that you attended the virtual meeting from the county on that phase 2.
Yeah, that happened yesterday,
Yeah.
and recordings are going to go out soon if anybody wants to watch that. But they're hoping to bring it to the legislature in June or July for approval. So, so that hopefully next phase could happen.
Ideally,
fast.
and I believe if anyone has any comments on that, I think the comment period is open until the 12th,
It's so
right? Or
fast.
15th, 12th?
The 12th.
Like, it's pretty soon. So if anyone wants to review that, that's at Monroe County Climate Action Plan.com. And there, just as you scroll down the page, you can, if you're on mobile device, download the plan through there, or review the plan even on that website. And then there's a space for comments below that, or an email that you can send them to.
So when you got to the virtual meeting, is there anything that really stood out for you in the plan and how it is stretching now into the community?
I guess a few things. You know, they're trying to go after the biggest sources of emission, so that would be transportation and buildings, and to a slightly lesser degree, waste. And so that, you know, we need to be taking our cue from that as well, right? So what is Penfield going to be doing for transportation? What's Penfield going to be doing for building electrification? And then the other thing is that this will not be mandatory from the county, that they are really hoping for the communities to buy in.
Okay. So phase 1 was the mandatory component for them because that did impact all of their own
Facilities.
facilities,
Yep.
actions, things under their control. So that's kind of the difference between the two of them.
Yeah. So they're going to be trying to work through education and providing resources and convening people and looking for partners, and lots of exciting things coming out of the county.
Yep.
And I know from Penfield's perspective, a lot of the things that would be considered a phase 1 for Penfield, that there's a lot of boxes that have already been checked. There's a lot of energy efficient building things that have happened for town.
And that we're already pursuing,
Yes.
such as upgrading internal lighting to LEDs. That's a costly project, but it's something the town's already working on pursuing. A lot of the work that's being done for the future DPW is considering different things that we need to do for energy efficiency, and ideally working to future-proof that building, so that there's later investments and not sooner additional investments. And then as the town eventually works towards a community center, that'll probably be the same thing.
Okay, good. Okay, Daniel, and you mentioned 2.
Yes, there's a lot.
There's a lot, but you could talk.
There's so many options.
One thing in particular that just stood out to me just now is that Penfield, we pride ourselves on being an agricultural community, and action category 8, support a green innovative economy, having farmers market in Penfield. I know that Brighton has one, Rochester has one, so many other towns have one.
I think Arundecoit does? West
I think so.
Arundecoit?
Well, Arundecoit. But I feel like it would make a lot of sense if Penfield picked a day and said, oh, this is when we're doing it. I don't know where or when, but definitely something that we should look into.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one to look into. I know that on the Monroe County EMC that there is one of the communities that is working on setting up a farmer's market for the first time. So I'll pay a little bit of attention to that because I think they're getting ready to launch. But it's 6 months or so that they've gone through, working on the permitting and the, part of it to make sure that they do it all above board. And
Do you happen to remember which community that is?
Don't.
Okay.
yeah, if I look through the list of people, I could probably come up with it, but off the top of my head. But I will send that out to you guys to pay attention to that.
Where are most of the other towns' markets held? Is it's on their sites? Their town hall or what?
I know downtown, there's the public market. I don't actually know who owns that property. I don't know if that's the city or a different group.
I think it falls it's either the city or the county. It does fall under one of those, yes.
And then in Greece, I know that there's one at the town hall, not the town hall, at the mall.
Yep. Brighton's is at the high school.
Okay.
Fairport's is in that cute little green open parking space there's a whole businesses surround it. It's a giant parking lot, and they take over part of the parking lot. And
I know
Irondequoit's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Irondequoit's is also, it's at their town hall area.
I thought they.
I know there's one in Chile at a church.
And then Brighton also recently opened their winterized shelter in the giant park that they have. I forgot the name of.
So they do one during the winter as well?
Yes. And then there's the whole category of the implement climate smart land use policy, which I'm trying to look up right now. There is a program, it's like smart growth under the New York State Department of State.
So the town does already pursue smart growth principles. I'd have to look again specifically of which one you're talking about to see if we have the documentation already to meet that goal. But I do know that we already implement smart growth principles and that is also part of the comprehensive plan. So that's a great one.
I'm definitely drawn personally to the last section on education. I think, all of these are really important.
I would say education has the potential to be a strength of ours, too. I think we have a lot of community resources that would support any of those activities.
And going back from the minutes last time, we were talking about, at some point, a survey to get to make sure that the goals of the town and the goals of the community were aligned. And so education, to what people were, their response to what they think would be better if, they had some background first to make an informed
Yeah.
response.
I think these are individual education-specific,
to
not for putting in a climate-smart community. It's more focal points of.
Okay, but education is
Some of it's on.
that's my area
Yeah.
anyways, that I,
See? There's another
It is.
resource for us, right?
that's my thing.
Yep.
When reading this a while ago, I see that they're all interconnected, and especially the education number 4, if the town continues with the plan to have a climate action plan, we can make a website, as it says, and so then we're doing more than one at the same time. Well,
In other words, working on one isn't mutually exclusive of
Yeah.
working on another. You can
yeah.
knock off with the old kill two birds with one stone sort of metaphor. Not that
that
we
might
want to
not
be.
be- might
That's
not
not
be
the
good
best.
for our group.
That's not the best one to be using for.
We have to work on that one.
Yeah.
I think it's you catch two birds with a single worm.
Okay, let's do that one. We'll catch two birds with a worm.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. I knew as I was speaking it, it's like, okay, how am I going to roll that one back?
There's a lot of newer phrases for those.
What's that?
There's a lot of newer phrases for those kinds of things now, too.
Yes, yes. Okay. Any other favorites that have come to mind? I mean, I do know it's hard to do, but I think that at least from an informative perspective, it's good for us to kind of really capture things that we feel strongly about, as well as.
I'd ask you folks to give your opinion.
Well, so I've already gone through the survey, and under the done, in process, and interested column, I've put X's for anything that the town already has documentation for, which would be done. In process, if we're already working on getting a grant, or we've already had quotes, or the work is currently being done. And then under interested, if the town has already acknowledged that they're working towards that. So for example, Matt is selecting complete streets policy. The town does and is working on a complete streets policy, and that is also in the comprehensive plan. So those are kind of how we would already be approaching those types of things.
That also, I notice over in the other level that those act as priority items. If you could jump to that one again.
To complete streets.
The streets one. There it is.
So those are priority action. So that one specifically is a priority action for both bronze and silver. It's not, my understanding, it's not required to be done first, but they have more importance to NYSERDA.
So that would be something that we could also look at, is which ones.
Yeah.
The done ones we know. I mean, that's good just to be able to claim.
Well, and I gave that information so that as the committee is doing essentially their business analysis, is the members can look at that and say, will we have enough points as of today to become a climate smart community? And then you can also look at it and go, if this is counting for our first designation, can it count again in 5 years for a second designation? And that, my hope was that it would help you as committee members to put that business analysis together. And then ideally, when that goes to the town board, they have that comparison of, we can make or complete action items to get a designation by whatever date. And we do ideally have enough items that we can pursue within the next 5 years to continue that designation. So it's not just a one and done project, it's a long-term plan for the town.
You know, it occurs to me that ideally, as the town itself works towards the climate action plans and emission, all the things to be a climate smart community, that just by doing day-to-day business will eventually meet designations.
For the first
by
designation,
explaining that?
ideally. Ideally for the second designation, but when the town board is, and as I think Kevin brought up when Roy originally brought up the business analysis or business plan, Kevin had brought up the town board needs to know essentially what the buy-in is. So how are we going to get there in the first place to be designated? And what's the long-term cost, both financially as well as staff, as well as anything else? And then with those items, what are the pros and cons of it? Is the town getting anything out of being a climate smart community? Is it just a designation and we get a plaque somewhere?
Yeah.
Or is there more than that? The town's pursuing and has been pursuing clean energy and climate initiatives since before I even worked here. And ideally, they will continue long after I am dead. But having being a climate smart community and having that designation, what does it bring to Penfield? The town board needs that information.
That's that cost-benefit analysis.
Do you have your
Quickly switching back to the categories. I know this is probably a little bit on our agenda a little bit later, but with the moratorium on commercial solar, after we have like the policies set in place for commercial solar, the second to last on support a green and innovative economy with a rooftop solarize campaign would be work hand in hand as well.
Yeah. A lot of these do connect one to another, so it is.
They definitely tie together. And that's part of why I would say we are close, if not ready, for a designation if that's where the town wants to go, because they tie together so well. The other thing to consider with that is these items, especially the specific ones that this group is really interested in the town pursuing, consider what the resources needed are. Is that something that this group can do? Can, like, for example, the Solarize campaign, can these committee members put together a Solarize campaign? Do you need 1, 2, 5 staff members to do that? Like, what is the investment? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be important both for the whole thing of getting the designation, but also specific action items that this committee wants the town to pursue. That's going to be even more important. And I say it that way because if we're coming to the town board saying we're really interested in these items and it's a community campaign, well, Color Penfield Green is working really hard on these community campaigns, so they're showing that they're looking to put in that investment of their time to help the town get there. And as a committee, showing all of the work that you've already done towards these different initiatives and what work you're looking to do in the future, that I think will help the town board see that there's residents that are buying into these actions.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Does. Okay, so it looks like we really as a group need to do some math. We need to kind of get to the point where we're comfortable with point values of what's done. Like, do we think that really adds up? And then we need to start looking at estimating resources for which ones we feel would be the ones to add in so that we can, I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say is that we'll need to figure out. And I know, Daniel, you've been kind of through your schoolwork, learning a lot about climate action plans and probably would understand the best of what some of the resources it would take for us to formalize something versus to continue forward as an informal process.
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of thing where we need to really tap into our resources as a group. If we want to pursue educational elements, is like, where do we have any of that expertise among ourselves? How much of the town's resources do we need to pull? And do we know which resources are there that we should ask, hey, is this the right person that would be the resource? Not that we would ask them or take that, but just kind of that understanding of who's out there.
And we're absolutely happy to help facilitate any of this. So if you're like, I think the DPW would be included in this, and you come and say, would the DPW be included in this? Then you know definitively if they are. If there's an action and you're like, I think we might be doing this, but I'm not sure. Like, we are happy to answer any and all questions, and if we don't have the answer, we are happy to help find it.
Could we add another column where you guys would go through and figure out, score each item in terms of staff, time, and effort? Like a 1 being really easy, a 5, or, whatever it might be. Would that be possible?
I think that can at least be started.
Okay.
I don't.
That's a big ask,
especially,
by the way.
Especially like the education initiatives right now. Like, I know in 10 minutes I can't off the top of my head answer all of those.
How about the ones?
because
with
it's
X's?
so varying.
That
But
you're
yes,
interested
the ones that are done or we're interested in, I can at least give a start. But part of the understanding that I think needs to be there is it may be a 12-hour project, but that doesn't simply mean it's I start today and I'm done tomorrow
Right.
kind of thing. It could be it's a 12-hour project, but the time frame for it to be completed might be 4 months and it might be a year. That it depends what goes into it. So I think that's something that at least Matt and I can start on. I can't guarantee at this point I'm going to have an answer for every column or every row.
I'm
Is
wondering.
that reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm wondering if, because I haven't gone through as in-depth as you folks in your backgrounds and education with that, if we could take a row and kind of analyze, whoever picks which row it should be, and analyze it so there's sort of a framework for what should I do, what should I look at, where should I, because I can learn from doing, so to speak.
So are you, for example, do you want to now go through one entire row, what each of the columns are, and basically just what's going on there? Is that what you
Maybe
mean?
does that make some sense?
I think so.
Yeah, there's some of the ones in the purple section, enhance community resilience to climate change. So there's one with a comment that has shadow pines after it, line 78. At least-
Oh, yeah.
Would that be a reasonably easy one to do?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So the action category for this one is enhance community resilience to climate change. There's, I want to say 7 action categories, maybe 8 or 9, but each action category is like an overarching theme for those items. The next one specific to this is the name of the action, which this one is conserve natural areas. Thankfully, I think it says Loris. I think Katie put in what what is included as a note in each of these, and then she made each of the names a link. So if you click on it, it'll bring you to the Climate Smart Communities website, and it shows you similar to what she put as a note, right?
Someone else did the work
Oh.
on the links. I don't want to
Oh.
take credit for that, but I did pull that note, like the A through E. and
Either
pull it
way,
into the-
I appreciate the committee member that did both of those things, because I did not already do that, and I think it's really helpful. So there's a link to the website, which shows you all of the information. There's a note, that's why it has a little black corner, and that, again, provides you with the information for what's required, how to implement it, the time frame, project cost, resource needs, consideration, how to obtain points, and how many points are available. And then also there's links on the website for kind of resources. This one specifically is for conserving natural areas. One of the point achieving actions within that category is purchasing land for conservation. So I put in shadow pines as would that count? I don't know right now if it's in the applicable time frame. One of the things that I struggled with when reviewing the website for Climate Smart Communities was it didn't give a look back date for when an item would apply. My understanding is it's a 5-year look back. So right now in 2024, that would bring us back to 2019 for when it would be applicable. And off the top of my head, I don't remember when we purchased shadow pines. I just know I was working here. So that's why in the next column after, so I have done as in, I think think we qualify for that. If it's not Shadow Pines, I think another one, or actually a project that we're currently pursuing would apply for that action item. Interested in is, again, the town is continually interested in conserving natural areas, and they've done that through development right purchases, all kinds of different things through the years, so that's a continuing interest for the town. Then that's where I referred to the notes. I put in Shadow Pines for that.
So in that notes, can you write that question in, what is the look-back period? Or-
Sure, but I have that for all of them.
Okay, that's for all of them, okay.
That's a question for our coordinator that I need to bring to her.
Okay.
And I think the answer, it's 5 years from the designation.
In section F of that note, it says, all actions must have been completed within the past 10 years.
Oh, I missed that
At least
one.
for that one.
Okay.
In F.
So
They
then
might-
I can tell
might
you,
change.
because I have not been working here for 10 years, Shadow Pines would count.
How do we lock that in?
What do you mean?
Well, so it counts, so
So if-
you have to submit an application to say we did this part, so
Yes, so-
recognize that,
See,
and,
that's
Yep.
inside there, how do you obtain the points?
aha,
Well, so that's, how you obtain the points is what, like.
What
the
action you have to do.
Action you have to take. For all of the points to be added up and for us to be designated, that is completing the application with our coordinator that came in and did the presentation, that's Rachel. And she, I don't know if you remember, she offered to like sit with a staff member once a week to go through the paperwork and everything. Once all of that's complete, that would be the like drop due date.
okay, so.
So
it's-
if that was tomorrow, the look back for this one would be 10 years from tomorrow.
Okay, so it's not do a piece at a time, it's when all the pieces are ready to be submitted.
Yep.
Okay. And for our benefit, because to demonstrate that this is worthwhile, bringing us back to cost and benefit, is, I don't know, the cost, well, there was the purchase of the land, but that already happened. The benefits, it's not necessarily all a dollar figure.
Oh, absolutely. Benefits do not
So-
have to be just financial.
So it's the, fact that, projects are going on there now for sports and,
Currently, there's a project for facilities. That's kind of what we sum it up as. There'll be 2 inclusive playgrounds, a 2 to 5-year-old playground, and I believe a 5 to 12-year-old playground. There'll be a pavilion with bathrooms and 10 pickleball courts, a whole bunch of trees, and a parking lot.
so this is probably where we need Roy to say, how is this, in this purpose of, showing, and I'm just taking this one as an example, it's
Please,
an
yeah.
already done thing, but how would we quantify something that's qualitative, in other words, so.
Well, and that's possible that you create a criteria of how you determine the value in something, of maybe you're rating the different action items as a 1 to 4, and 1 is the least beneficial and 4 is the most beneficial. You could do it that way. You could approach it as just giving a list of benefits, and maybe what category those benefits come under, if it's financial or if it's high. If it's based on value to residents, if it's based on conservation value or energy efficiency value, however you want to approach that.
And I think some of them, like this one, the land's already been purchased.
Yes, right.
But let's say you had to start and you picked this one as one, and then you looked around and said, well, the minimum land we need to purchase is this many acres. That'll cost us, $10,000. What's our benefit?
Right,
for
right,
that?
that's
And
what I say, is the purchase is easy to quantify, the benefit was.
Yes. Well, and I think the benefits are more, the benefit would just be in the potential for us to get grant money. That's, I think, what we're going to weigh it against is based on, there's benefits of us doing the projects intrinsically, separately, but in terms of the whole thing, it's,
For getting grant money, if you're talking about pursuing that, but.
right.
So you're looking at it kind of twofold of what are the benefits of becoming a designated climate smart community? And then you may also look at it as there's a subset of benefits of completing these actions.
What it does for the town, and
yes.
community, and, yes.
The catch with that is the town can pursue these items without being a designated climate smart community.
sure.
The town already has been.
Okay.
So that's kind of the difference that you're looking at.
Yeah, so maybe we would want to focus on the benefit of getting this grant.
Of getting
Getting
designated.
the climate smart community.
Yeah.
That would be, okay.
And I can share with you, I have recently, just offhandedly, had a chance to talk to one of the other towns' representative or staff member that's been working on their climate smart community work. So they're already designated, and that person primarily completed the designation paperwork. For them, it took about a year of a lot of their time to get all of the different paperwork together. I can at least give you some encouraging information of, since I had the opportunity to be on EEAC prior to this committee and have a hand in a lot of the different energy efficiency projects, I have had a chance to have some of that documentation. So for example, we have all of the receipts from replacing the LED streetlights. That is documentation we might need to provide. We have all of the documentation from our community campaigns. That's not something that we have to go digging for. So that's at least encouraging, whereas I know in this other town, they did have to go digging for receipts for certain things to prove that this is the date that that thing was purchased. Okay. So that's just kind of an anecdotal reference that I happened to get last week.
That's nice. That's good. And that other piece that did help me, because it narrows down, we don't have to assign it a value. We're going to look strictly at the benefits of climate smart community, i.e. potential grants.
I think that's the most important
makes it
thing,
easier.
my understanding, for the town board to understand of what is the value of the designation versus just on our own pursuing these action items like we have been.
At the same time, as we go through the list and we hit one that goes, we should just do this, then we should just do that, you know?
Yeah, if that's something that's just simply achievable, please bring it to our attention.
Okay, great, to do that.
We're happy to keep pursuing items throughout this entire process.
Okay, so given the time constraints of our meeting and that we do have some really fun agenda items still to go over, are we content with what discussion we've had for now? Do we have at least a little bit more knowledge? I mean, I think I have a better idea of some to-dos that we can do kind of as a team or individually to move ourselves forward.
Yeah, I would love to, I mean, if at all possible between now and our next meeting, I'd love to hear, you know, for those of us who flagged certain items as of interest, you know, go into that a little bit more about, like, why is that of interest to you? I would love to know, like, what are the arguments for creating a proper climate action plan versus going about it, like what you said, you know, informally. So if that's possible, I don't know, is that a big ask, or is?
No, I think that's reasonable for us
Okay.
to really start to look at some of these things and see what, you know, as a little bit like Pat said, that there's value to each of them
Yeah.
for the town, but which of them make it that we should be more formalized versus not as formalized on.
I just do have one thing on the minutes from last time, it's fine if we're not there yet. We had talked about, briefly about needing to get, you know, at some point, a survey, because one of the aspects was getting, was the town goals in line with community goals. And I think, Sarah, you hadn't identified a time frame on it, but that you proposed that you contact the town's communications director about their survey that they did related to Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Sure. So I did talk with our communications director. It is possible to do a survey. We would need some direction from the town board if they're interested in doing a survey, and what the time frame for that would be. My understanding from the communications director was if the town is to pursue a survey, it's likely town staff or a consultant would put that together. And there was a little bit of hesitancy because if we're just throwing to residents something simple along the lines of, do you want the town to become a climate smart community? And just expecting residents to understand all of these actions that go into it and the cost and all of that, like, that's what we're trying to explain to the board to begin with. Like, I wouldn't expect me 5 years ago to know all of the details of this.
Right.
So I wouldn't expect a resident today to understand all of the details of this.
That can't be the question, in other words. Right.
So that's why I was saying that I think we need to get our ducks in a row before we really do that. We need to be sold as a one body that, yes, we would love to have the town go forward specifically with the designation.
Yeah, no, I understood that wasn't necessarily the next thing to do. I
Yeah,
just wanted
sure.
to follow
So
what you had learned about it.
What came back from the communications director was along those lines of, I think the town needs to determine if there is enough value for the town to become a climate smart community prior to determining if we do a survey or how we do a survey.
Okay.
Because one of the positives of a survey, like the recreation one, was you do get a lot of feedback. Some of that feedback is really, really helpful, and some of it's just negative. So when we're looking to put a survey out like that, that has to be considered in the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can you get us back to the agenda, Matt? Okay, so I think we get to, is there any other old business? And you mentioned that one, which is good to make sure that we cover. I think the only other thing that I don't know whether it's worth mentioning was the idea of the clean energy communities. The funding is going away.
Yeah.
So we did receive materials that Matt sent out to us, that if we want to learn a little bit more about what's happening to that
Part of the budget.
that activity, that he had provided that to us. I think it would be beneficial for the community just to be aware of that, in case there is anybody out there that's also passionate and would want to send a note out to somebody.
Yeah, so anyone that would want the materials that were sent out to the committee members, you can find them in our minutes from this past meeting. So the April 11th, 2024 EECC meeting minutes. And it would be this document from NYSERDA, and then pages 48 to 51 mentions that shifting support for local governments slightly away from the Clean Energy Community Program. And then there's part of the Department of State, Department of Public Service site. If you go on here, and the instructions on how to get to the case file documents are also in our minutes, specific to these NYSERDA actions. And then we also included the draft comment letter, which goes specifically to Honorary Michelle L. Phillips, Secretary of New York State Public Service Commission. And then, or you can send that draft comment letter to Eleanor Peck, which is epeck at Hudson Valley rc.org, of the Hudson Valley Regional Council. So yeah, again, those materials are in the April 11th, 2024 EECC minutes if you want to provide comment for that particular case.
And I don't recall what timeframe they were adopting the budget in, but
I didn't
think
see that
was
either.
Close.
Yeah, I was trying to find that, or if there was any specific dates in the draft comment letter. But yeah, I wasn't able to determine that specifically, so.
I think I thought it was about this time of year, if not June. So if you're looking to send a letter, do it sooner than later.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Are there actions open, things happening that could qualify us for more grants that we need to support happening between now and the time the money goes away?
Not that I think you could provide different support than you're currently providing.
Okay. That works for me. Okay. Moving on then, I think we can head into our new business. First one is upcoming events.
So these upcoming events that we're talking about are actually being put on by Color Penfield Green and Penfield together. Oh, you do have it right there. Okay, so the first one is Clean Heating, Cool Savings. This is about heat pumps, which are both for heating and cooling, to be clear. And it will be June 6th. There's 2 different times, from 3 to 4:30 p.m. and from 7 to 8:30 p.m. These are free classes, and it's a really great opportunity for residents to learn about heat pumps and how having an all-electric home can benefit them, and what savings are there, and what New York State tax rebates are there as well for that initiative. The other one is EV 101. This, again, also has 2 classes, but if you note, there's 2 different dates for each class. It's the 20th and the 27th of June, because it's a 2-part class. That is from 4:30 to 6 p.m. and 7 to 8:30 p.m. for each of those classes individually. And this is to educate residents about electric vehicles, what rebates are out there, how to determine if an electric vehicle is for you and which one is better for you. There's also, for both classes, some, essentially case studies from different residents in town. And I will also acknowledge both of these classes, Katie has, as a member of Color Penfield Green, played a role in, and has also participated in our previous community campaigns and helped us achieve action grants before this for the town. By Color Penfield Green helping the town to put on these classes, and encouraging residents to purchase electric vehicles, purchase heat pumps, and do energy efficiency upgrades to their homes. That brings us closer to completing the action grants, the actions for clean energy communities, community campaigns, and that also brings us closer to getting action grants again for these new classes and our new projects in town. Would you like to add anything, Katie?
Just really quickly, that if anybody can't make those classes, that just to sign up anyway, and we've got great resources that we can send out, and we'll be planning to run these classes again in the fall, perhaps in the winter as well.
And on top of that, I believe we talked about potentially recording them, and there are recordings of the previous classes, but these ones will include some discussion on the Inflation Reduction Act benefits that are out there right now for residents.
Yeah, things have changed a lot for incentives since we ran this class last time.
Yeah. So ideally, it would be better to watch the new recording once we've completed this round of classes, but just so you know, that'll be available too. Yeah. So those are our upcoming events at this time. I'll go back to Cynette again then.
I think,
or do you want me to continue on?
I'll let you continue on, but
Okay.
we did at least want to acknowledge that Kevin Berry finally has been able to join us. We didn't want that to go unnoticed.
Sorry, I was late.
That's fine, thank you. Thank you very much for giving us the time that you give us. Okay, so you can continue on with other new business.
Yep. So some updates. We've previously talked to this committee about EPOD code revisions. And specifically, we talked about woodland EPOD code revisions. And to be clear, those are environmentally protected overlay districts. That's what EPOD stands for. The town has completed the first draft changes for the entire EPOD code for the town, rather than just focusing on woodlands. We realized that because of the way it's written, we felt it would be the most useful for everyone's time to just do it all at once, which is why it took a little longer to get to this committee, but now it's coming. So next week, staff will be talking to the town board about a timeline for these updates. And we're looking to, ideally tomorrow, send out the draft to the committee members, this committee's members, of the draft EPOD updates. Are we sending it as a markup or as a,
Right, so the idea, like, it's not like the town tree law where we're starting with, a loose copy or a draft. Like, this is a pretty refined draft that we've put through, and we're really more or less just looking for any comments. We're not, hoping to redraft or anything like that. So essentially, you will receive a link to a Google Drive document that you'll be able to comment on and throughout. And the idea would be that you would get it tomorrow, and then at the next meeting, we'll have a discussion about any comments and potentially pose those comments to the town board, or have a discussion about what where we can have those comments taken. So
then once comments are received from EECC by the staff, the small group of staff will get back together that put together the revisions in the first place. We'll review those comments, make updates and changes based on those. And then that draft will, my understanding is, go to the town board for review and ideally future adoption. Within that process, once the town board gets that draft, the town board would ideally at some point set a public hearing date so we can get public comments on the EPOD code revisions, and then ideally later, if changes are needed, we would make whatever appropriate changes based on the town board's comments, and ideally have it approved at some point. So some final, just changing the format to reflect local law was happening today, which is why it's going to the committee out by email tomorrow.
Okay.
So that is the EPOD code revision.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Things are really percolating.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions on that process or about the revisions or anything like that?
I guess my biggest question is just, are there ones that you have made significant revisions to? Is this very much a fresh look, or?
So okay. So the main first section of the code is this that you're seeing right now on the screens. That talks about what exceptions there are to permits, what documents are required for permits, those types of things. Then there's a subsection, and we'll see as Matt scrolls down, a subsection for each specific EPOD. So some of it is as simple as cleaning up the titles and just making it, instead of EPOD 1, now it's Wetland Protection Overlay District.
It's Wetland EPOD.
Wetland EPOD.
Right.
Because previously in the code, we label out what EPOD is and put parentheses EPOD, and then that means that at this part of the code, we don't have to write out what Protection Overlay District. So it's just Wetland EPOD. That's just something, small changes like that were made. Then I think Wetland EPOD stayed pretty similar. It will look shorter if you're comparing the two sections, because a lot of abbreviations were put in after words were spelled out, abbreviations were put in after that. So that shortened it a fair bit. For anything that was referring to boards, There used to be like a really long sentence to refer it to appropriate boards, and now it's a specific phrase that the attorney has given the town to use in the future. So those kinds of things are simple, small changes. That doesn't change the value of the code.
So what we're looking at right now is the current?
You're looking at the current.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll provide a link to
the-
this so that you'll be able to do a side-by-side comparison
okay.
and
Very
see
good.
how things have changed.
The one that really has had, in my opinion, has had the biggest changes are the steep slope EPOD and the woodland EPOD.
Okay.
Yeah. And those have more I don't know how to say the word, substantial changes.
Okay. Which, in our experience, it was needed as well, so.
Yes, the staff definitely shared that opinion.
So there's no, they're not involved in any redrawing of the EPOD districts at this time? Okay.
Not at this
No,
time.
and that really, any updates to district boundaries doesn't require a code change. As information is made available to the town for wetland delineations or things like that, we're able to update the EPOD maps based on that information without changing a code or anything like that.
And that's what I had recalled doing several years ago, was the town maps with aerial photos, and probably was the woodland EPODs that we were
Right.
adjusting based
Probably.
on
Right.
what it used to be versus what currently showed in the aerial. It's like, well, it's flat now. It used to have trees, but
Right.
And then within those more substantial changes, a lot of it's clarification. Some of the code right now is contradictory. So the first section will contradict like something in steep slopes. So we wanted to resolve those contradictions and just make it more clear of what's required and what's expected.
And if you compare our code to code from other municipalities, other EPOD codes, they're very similar. They're kind of cut from the same cloth. And so there were certain definitions that didn't quite match what we had in other portions of our zoning code. So while there's updates occurring in the EPOD code, there's other definition changes that are being included in the local law amendment that change things in the zoning definitions. And so just ensuring comprehensive cohesiveness or just agreement across the zoning code and our EPOD code.
the more that you clean that and clarify, it means the application of the policy is easier
And more
Yes.
to
consistent.
be adhered
Right.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And there's less room for interpretation.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you. I think we're looking forward to that.
yeah, it was a good process.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were both on that, so.
Yeah, I mean, it was several work sessions that
For sure.
it took through us. So
Yeah.
I would say our best recommendation would be to give it a solid read through before you start doing any sort of comparisons. Just sit with it and then kind of start making comments at that point, because it's a very dense document.
Yep.
So just seeing, fresh eyes on it, I'd recommend just giving it a read through and, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So next on our list is kind of another update. I didn't previously bring this project to this committee. It's the Willow Pond Pollinator Garden. A group of residents from Color Penfield Green and Healthy Yards Monroe came to the town and brought to us that they were interested in installing a pollinator garden on the grounds of Willow Pond. Willow Pond is one of the ponds in town. There's a subdivision around, near it, that's also called Willow Pond, just there's no confusion. But the town owns land around half of the pond. The other half is technically in Parrington. So it's right at the town line. After some time of back and forth, we got approval to let those residents put the garden on the town property. The garden will become the town's being on town property, but they've agreed to do maintenance over the next few years and plant plants, appropriate pollinator plants in that garden. So actually, wow, that's already updated. So you can see on this map where the garden is.
Oh, look at that.
Sorry, it was only put in a few weeks ago. I'm just really surprised.
Guys are quick.
So that is where the garden is. It's approximately 20 by 20 feet. It's not going to look like a crazy pretty flower garden this year. It takes time for pollinator gardens to establish themselves. It takes watering. It's a lot of effort that these residents are looking to put into it, which is so appreciated. And then you see the little posts around. Those are posts to help delineate where the garden is so that it is not mowed over. The town does contract out mowing, especially in this area. So we wanted it slightly away from the edge of bank so that there's access for the mowers to go along the edge. You see the green strip between that and the brush. One, so the mower doesn't fall in. It's a little bit away. And two, so that there's access to all of those edges of the pond, because technically that is the only pond in town that is a dam. Like designated a dam by the DEC. So we are required to do inspections on it every year, and we need that access. So that is why it does not abut the pond completely. And ideally, we're looking to get some sort of sign on it showing residents that it's a pollinator garden, that it belongs there, that it's part of the town of Penfield. And it's a really great project that's moving forward and got approval. So I wanted to share that with this committee.
Where are they going to pull the water in for watering the plants?
A really, really nice resident that is a member of that group lives across the street, and is happy to bring it over.
Wow, okay.
We don't have potable water access at that location, and the town was not comfortable with residents trying to pull water from the pond because it's kind of a steep bank, and it's not very safe. So part of the process was going back and forth and making sure there was an understanding that we didn't have access to potable water, that it was not going to be an easy accomplishment. And with that agreement of that resident, we're moving forward at this time. It's kind of like a pilot project, I would say, in my mind. And they did ask to do some other plantings in that area, and because we were not 100% sure of the longevity of it at this time, we just limited it to that 20 by 20 area. Yeah. It's kind of the area that it's in. It's pretty close.
Well, one of the beautiful things
That's the other
about
side.
planting native is that you do have to commit to care that first year, but then
Especially,
after that, it takes care of itself.
Yep, and the town has agreed to treat it kind of like meadow mowing, where the town will mow it every 3 years. We will not mow it within the first 3 years, but to help keep out any invasive plants that might plant themselves there by seeds or such, keep them out of the area.
Keep the woody growth down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything that shouldn't be in there, it should help keep that down.
You mean
But-
around it?
No, I mean,
In it,
so
right in it.
in meadow mowing, generally you mow every 3 years.
Okay.
And that would be, that basically, the pollinator plants have such deep roots that they come back.
So that would be, okay.
But generally invasives, if you mow it often enough and not too often, those will kind of get taken out.
Well, you don't want it's working its way towards the pond and clogging up.
Well, so, and that is why there is a strip of grass that'll
Right, but I mean, I'm
remain.
sure it could still
Yeah,
try.
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
No, I think the stuff surrounding it is what'll try to get
Yeah.
into it more than anything else.
Yeah.
Like the grass, that's grass or so around it will seed itself inside and then,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's
and
a
any,
struggle for.
like dandelion seeds just fly
Anybody
through
that's
the air, like
weeded
any other plants that are just,
Where?
just come around. So that was a process to get it approved and all of that, but The residents seem really happy to be doing it, and I mean, I myself am appreciative.
Yeah, I applaud
think
the
everyone else
efforts
should be,
of both of those community-based groups and the neighbors that have worked on this. I think that's wonderful.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I'd also like to share that I heard the story from the resident, and she just was effusive in her compliments to the town and how responsive everybody was and how supportive they were, and so it was a really positive experience for her.
I'm really glad. I'm really glad. So that is the information for the Willow Pond Pollinator Garden.
Okay.
The last item on our agenda is the moratorium on future applications for non-residential solar applications. And I should clarify this title a little bit. So this is for any commercial projects that would come into town, which are like solar fields or wind fields or battery storage operations, those types of things. It also includes ground-mounted solar within neighborhoods. So if I lived on Atlantic Avenue and I wanted to put ground-mounted solar in my backyard, that is included. However, there is an appeals process for if someone comes in, they're like, I need this for this certain reason, and it's not going to affect my neighbors because there's all of this buffering, whatever, they can go to the town board and go through an appeal process. The moratorium was approved last week. We are waiting for the Secretary of State's signature on it for it to be like completely official. That's like when it technically starts, the moratorium, is when the Secretary of State signs the local law. The town is not stopping solar installations. We're not trying to do anything like that. The town is already in the process of reviewing a sustainability code similar to how we took care of the EPOD code revisions, but this is a code from scratch. Thankfully, there are some templates from NYSERDA that we can use as or could use, because we have already used as a starting point. But we're looking to meet in small groups like we did for the EPOD code to work on this sustainability code. The sustainability code will include solar, it'll include battery storage, wind, geothermal, a whole lot of things. One of the things that brought up a moratorium for solar in the first place was actually a commercial entity that came to the town and said, we'd like to put solar in your town, but your code doesn't have a mechanism to do that yet. And we're like, we are working on it. We're working on it. It's a process, but it's coming. And they're like, well, because of our project, we need to work with RG&E through the process, and we need to give them kind of down payments for it. So they were like, if you have a solar moratorium, that allows us to put a hold on our down payments. And that's kind of how it came to us in the first place, because the town was already working on the code and it wasn't going to change anything substantially from where we were in the first place. We brought the option of having a solar moratorium to the town board, and they held a public hearing and approved it. So we wanted to give you an update on that.
Now, I know we've been working on the sustainability code, or pieces of it, it feels like forever.
It does.
Is it moving along? Is it?
So it moved along internally with just a couple staff members previous to last week, well, 2 months ago. And then 2 months ago, it went to a larger group of staff members for comments. And now that we've gotten through the EPOD code revisions, now it's going to that small working group of developmental services, engineering, and planning to continue on more specifically working on it week by week, day by day together. We found that process is a lot more efficient than just sending documents with comments back and forth. Just sitting together and rewriting the code and doing whatever modifications are appropriate all together has been a lot more useful. After that, we will have the building department review it again. We may bring them into some of those meetings as well, because it's really going to affect them the most, because they review permits, they take applications for a lot of these things, a lot of the sustainable elements already. So anytime a geothermal application comes in, they're already taking that. Anytime solar applications come in, they're already taking that. So we do need their input as well, and they've been giving it previously, but that's kind of how that process works. So
Yeah, because I know we got to read some of those way back as EEAC members.
And that was before a lot of the templates for the other items came out through NYSERDA. So we were really focusing just on solar, mostly on solar back then. And just as time has moved on, there's a lot more elements going into the sustainability code. So, please.
I just wanted to say that when it came to the information on the moratorium for the town board, we were told that, the major reason was that if a commercial entity came in and wanted to put something in, that there wouldn't be appropriate guidance in place and things may get off track. The part about the company and the down payment.
Oh, that's just how the idea came to us.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
So
it's just, they just gave us the paperwork in the first place as a, hey, this is something would the town consider? And then we were like, oh, that is an option that's appropriate. Also, something to consider, if currently as New York State's regulations are, if a company comes into town and has a 25 plus megawatt solar field that they're looking to install, and the town's code is not adequate in allowing it, like in how they restrict it or how they allow it, then the state can overrule the town code and just they start managing it now, the application, and they review it. So that's part of the urgency in having a code developed.
And that was one thing that was stressed to us, was that this is going to be done as quickly as possible. And that's one thing that the board wanted, was for it to be done as quickly as possible.
And having the solar moratorium really shows that that's a priority for the town board, that staff work on that. And that, I mean, in my position, that helps determine what I do of what the priorities are for the town.
Okay.
So I know we're short on time. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Okay, that said, do we have any other new business that we need to cover in our 2.5 remaining minutes? Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 13th. And at this time, I get to declare this meeting of the Environment and Energy Conservation Committee closed. And I have that it is 5:57 p.m.